As a brain doctor, I see it too often. A senior comes in after a stroke, and when I ask, "Did you feel anything odd beforehand?" they pause and say, "Well, maybe I had some dizziness or slurred words, but it went away." That moment of "it went away" is what terrifies me, because stroke warnings often come silently, briefly, and if you're over 60, missing them can change everything. In this video, I'll show you the most common signs seniors still overlook and how knowing them could save your life. You've just heard me say it. As a brain doctor, I'm shocked, because even today, so many seniors still ignore stroke warnings just because the symptoms disappear. So let me ask you this. Have you ever felt dizzy for a moment or forgotten a word and simply brushed it off? If you're over 60, that one moment might matter more than you think. Let's begin the countdown. Number 1. The first sign is also the most deceptive. The symptom shows up, then disappears. One moment you're slurring your words, the next you're speaking just fine. You feel weak on one side, then a few minutes later, you're steady again. So you think, maybe I was just tired. But here's the danger. That just tired moment may have been your brain begging for help. A mini-stroke doesn't last long, but it's long enough to send a warning. When the blood flow to your brain is briefly interrupted, you may not feel pain, you may not fall, you may just feel off. And when that feeling fades, most people forget it ever happened. Please don't make that mistake. That short episode could be your only chance to prevent a major stroke. Listen to it, take it seriously, and tell your doctor, because waiting could cost you more than just a few minutes. Number 2. The second warning sign is easy to explain away because it feels like ordinary life. You forget a name mid-sentence. You lose your balance walking down the hall. You feel confused for a second, like you just woke up from a nap. So you tell yourself, "I'm just getting older." Or maybe it's just stress. But that's where danger hides. Mini-strokes don't always scream. Sometimes they whisper. And in people over 60, those whispers can sound a lot like aging. The key is sudden change. Not something that's been building slowly, but something that shows up out of nowhere. One moment you're sharp, the next foggy. One moment steady, the next off balance. That's not just aging. That's your brain waving a red flag. So if something feels strange, even for a moment, don't brush it off. Your body is trying to tell you something. And at your age, every strange symptom deserves your full attention. Let me pause for a moment. If some of these signs sound familiar, please don't blame yourself for not noticing them sooner. They often come quietly. And at our age, it's easy to believe we're just tired or just getting older. But I promise you this, recognizing them now can make all the difference later. Number 3. Slurred or mumbled speech. Let's talk about how your speech can reveal trouble inside the brain. You're having a normal day, then, out of nowhere, your words come out wrong. They're slurred, they sound slow, or maybe they just don't make sense. You try again, but it still feels off. It might only last a minute, then it's gone, so you move on. But don't, because when speech changes suddenly, even for just a moment, that's not a small thing. That's your brain waving a red flag. It's saying, something's not right, I'm struggling. I've had patients tell me it happened once and they ignored it. The next time, they ended up in the hospital with a stroke. Please don't wait for a second time. If this ever happened to you, even just once, share it in the comments. Your story could help someone else pay attention the first time. Number 4. Sudden confusion or trouble understanding speech. You're in the middle of a conversation. Someone asks you a simple question, but suddenly you can't follow what they're saying. Or you hear the words, but they don't make sense. It feels like the world just got fuzzy or distant. That kind of confusion can be frightening. And sadly, it's often mistaken for being tired, distracted, or just getting older. But here's what I want you to know. When confusion shows up suddenly, when your brain has trouble keeping up for no clear reason, something more serious could be happening. A mini stroke doesn't always hit like lightning. Sometimes it slips in like a fog, quiet, soft, but just as dangerous. And if you've ever had a moment like that, where your thinking felt off, don't ignore it. Please talk to someone. Mention it to your doctor. And if it happens again, don't wait. Because those few seconds of confusion could be your brain's only cry for help. Number 5. Sudden weakness or numbness. Tom was 74, a quiet, strong man. Retired after 4 decades fixing engines, raising 2 sons, and planting tomatoes every spring. One morning, he stood at the sink brushing his teeth, when suddenly, his toothbrush slipped right out of his hand. His right fingers felt numb. His arm felt weak. He stared at it for a moment, then laughed. "Must have slept on it wrong," he said. That numbness lasted less than a minute. By the time he sat down for breakfast, it was gone. He didn't mention it again. Not that day or the next. 4 days later, he collapsed in the kitchen. This time, it wasn't his hand. It was his whole right side. He couldn't stand. He couldn't move. He tried to call his wife, but the words wouldn't come. Tom survived the stroke, but now he walks with help, and he carries one deep regret. "I wish I'd listened to the first sign," he told me quietly. "It didn't hurt. It went away. But it was there, and I missed it." You see, many people believe if the numbness fades, it must not be serious. But that's the danger. When blood flow to the brain is blocked, even briefly, it can cause weakness or numbness, usually on one side. If the blood returns quickly, the symptom disappears. But that doesn't mean the risk is gone. In fact, that quiet moment is often the only warning you'll get. If your face suddenly droops or one arm feels heavy, even for a few seconds, please don't explain it away. Tell someone. Write it down. And if it happens again, call 911. In fact, why not write that down today? A simple reminder: if I feel numbness on one side, I won't wait. One small note could save your life. Let me ask you, has anything like that ever happened to you? Even just once? Leave a comment. You never know who might need to hear your story. Number 6. Sudden dizziness or loss of balance. Margaret loved her morning walks. At 68, she still walked 2 laps around the block every day. She said it helped her clear her mind and keep her knees moving. But one morning, halfway down the driveway, something shifted. The ground didn't feel steady. The trees blurred. She felt like the world was spinning. She grabbed the mailbox for balance and stood there, waiting for it to pass. After a minute, the spinning stopped. She went back inside, sat down, and told herself, "Maybe I got up too fast. Maybe I skipped breakfast." That's what many people think. They believe dizziness is just low blood sugar, or dehydration, or age. But what Margaret didn't know was that her brain had just missed blood, just for a moment. And in that moment, the part of her brain that controls balance couldn't keep up. That's the science behind it. Your brain's balance center, the cerebellum, relies on steady blood flow. When that flow is interrupted, even briefly, you can lose coordination, fall, or feel like the room is spinning. Not because you're weak, not because you're aging, but because your brain didn't get what it needed for just a few seconds. 2 weeks later, Margaret fell in her kitchen. She broke her hip. The ER doctor told her she'd likely had a mini stroke before. It had warned her, but she hadn't known what to listen for. Please, don't wait for a fall. If you ever feel sudden dizziness, especially with no clear reason, sit down, take it seriously, and tell someone. Write it in a notebook. Mention it to your doctor, and if it happens again, call for help. Because that brief moment of imbalance might not be about your legs at all. It might be your brain asking you to notice. Let me ask you this. Have you ever had a moment where the world just felt off, but you kept going? If you're comfortable, share that experience in the comments. You might help someone else pause before it's too late. Number 7. Sudden vision changes. It happened while Raymond was reading the paper. One minute, he was scanning the headlines. The next, the words on the page went blurry. Then, it was like someone had pulled a curtain over his left eye. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, tried again. Still half dark. 10 minutes later, his vision cleared. And just like that, everything felt normal again. So he didn't mention it. Not to his wife, not to his doctor. It must have been my glasses, he told himself. Maybe I just strained my eyes. But what Raymond didn't realize is this. That sudden change in vision, especially in one eye, is a classic warning sign. Not of bad eyesight, but of blocked blood flow to the part of the brain that helps us see. Even a brief shadow, even a flash of double vision or blurry light can mean your brain isn't getting the oxygen it needs. And when the lights flicker inside your head, that's not about glasses. That's a sign of trouble deeper than the eye can see. 3 days later, Raymond had a stroke. This time, it wasn't his vision that faded, it was his memory. He recovered, but when I spoke to him afterward, he said something that stuck with me. I thought because it went away, it didn't matter. So here's the truth many people miss. Just because something clears up doesn't mean it was harmless, especially when it comes to your brain, especially when it comes to vision. If you've ever experienced sudden changes in sight, even for a few minutes, don't ignore it. Jot it down. Tell someone. Bring it up during your next checkup. And if it ever happens again, seek help fast. Because losing your vision for a moment might be the first sign of losing something much more. Have you ever had an eye episode that didn't make sense, but you brushed it off? If so, feel free to share it in the comments. Your story could be the reason someone else doesn't ignore that same flash, blur, or shadow. Number 8. Severe, sudden headache. Joan wasn't a complainer. She was 72, still teaching part-time at the local library. She called herself tough, said she'd had migraines in her younger years, so she knew what pain felt like. But that morning was different. She woke up with a headache so sharp she couldn't sit up. It hit like a clap of thunder, fast, strong, and terrifying. She held her head, trying to breathe through the pain. She told her husband, "This doesn't feel like any headache I've ever had." He wanted to call 911. She said, "Let me lie down. Maybe it'll pass." It didn't. She lost consciousness minutes later. When she woke up in the hospital, the doctor told her the truth. That wasn't a migraine. It was a warning. A mini-stroke. The kind that sometimes comes with what we call a sentinel headache, a sudden severe burst of pain that your brain uses to scream, "Help me, now." And the heartbreaking thing is, so many people, especially women, ignore it. They think, "I've had headaches before, this is just another one." But this one felt different. And Joan knew it. The problem is, most people don't act on that feeling. So here's the simple truth. If you ever feel a headache that's sudden, severe, and unfamiliar, don't try to tough it out. Don't lie down and wait. Tell someone. Call for help. Because when it comes to your brain, the worst headache of your life could be your body's final warning. Have you ever had a headache so sudden, so strange, it scared you? Leave a comment. It might help someone recognize when it's not just another headache, but something far more serious. Number 9. Sudden tingling or paresthesia. Bill was a retired bus driver. One evening, while watching TV, he felt a strange sensation in his left hand. It started in his fingertips, a light tingling, like pins and needles. Then it moved slowly up his arm. He shook his hand, flexed his fingers. It didn't hurt, but it didn't feel right either. A few minutes later, it faded. He stood up, walked to the kitchen, made a sandwich. Life went on. And he never mentioned it to anyone. Just poor circulation, he thought. I must have slept on it funny. That's what many seniors believe. They think tingling is a small thing, an annoyance, but it can be a signal. Your brain sends messages to your body through nerves. If blood stops flowing, even for a few seconds, those signals get scrambled. That's why the tingling happens. It's not from your hand, it's from your brain trying to reconnect. When Bill had his stroke 2 weeks later, it started the same way, tingling. This time, it didn't stop. He lost all feeling on his left side. He told me later, I wish I'd said something that first night. I didn't know. So here's what I want you to remember. Tingling isn't always harmless, especially if it's sudden, especially if it's one-sided. If it happens to you, take note, tell your doctor. And if it ever comes with weakness, confusion, or dizziness, call for help right away. Have you ever felt tingling like that? Brief, strange, but easy to ignore? Share it in the comments if you feel comfortable. It could help someone else listen to their body while there's still time.
Number 10. Brief loss of consciousness or graying out. Ruth had never fainted in her life. At 76, she still cooked dinner every night, played cards with her church group, and prided herself on being steady on her feet. But that morning, as she stood up from the couch, something changed. Her vision dimmed, the room tilted. She said it felt like the color drained from everything. For a few seconds, she didn't know if she was standing or falling. Then, just like that, it passed. She sat back down, shook her head, and told herself, maybe I stood up too fast. I'm fine now. She never told her daughter, never called her doctor, and she's not alone. Many older adults feel that moment of graying out, that sense they're about to faint, but brush it off. They think it's nothing, just a skipped meal, just the heat. But what really happens is deeper. When your brain's alert system doesn't get enough blood, even briefly, it can shut down, just for a second. That lightheaded, blank moment is your brain saying, I need help. It's not always dramatic. You don't always fall, but it matters. Ruth had a stroke a week later. She was lucky. She recovered well. But she told me afterward, I wish I hadn't brushed it off. I thought fainting was something that only happened to weak people, but it was my brain trying to protect me. So if this ever happens to you, don't ignore it. Whether it's a second or a minute, whether you faint or just feel faint, take it seriously. Write it down. Call your doctor. And if it happens again, call for help. Let me ask, have you ever had a moment like that, when the world faded, even for just a second? Tell us below. Your story might help someone realize that moment matters. You've just heard the 10 signs your brain may whisper before a stroke. Please, don't ignore them. If even one of them sounds familiar, talk to someone. It could save your life or someone you love. And if this video helped you, do one small thing. Tap the like button.
Share it with a friend or a family member over 60. Subscribe so you don't miss the next message that could protect your health. And if you've ever felt one of these signs, tell us in the comments. Your story might be the one someone else needed to hear. We're all in this together. Stay safe, stay alert, and thank you for being here.